Hello. How is everybody? Good. Ignore me for a couple seconds.
What's first? Are they on?
I'll get there. So, Pastor Mike already beat me to it. I like to be in the back. Yeah, I like to be in the back. I move around a lot. For those of you who don't know, I squirrel. Jillian, you know what I'm talking about. So, some of you guys really know me and some of you guys don't. My wife was in here just a second ago, so it's probably a good thing that she doesn't hear this. Cricket, cricket. And she's back up, good. Okay, now, let's see, because I know some of you guys know me. What drink do I prefer? Do I prefer Coke or Pepsi? Just shout it out.
Pepsi.
Dalton, you can't answer. Yeah. All right. Honey, do I like Coke or Pepsi? Sorry, trick question.
Come on, man.
I'm not a soda drinker. All right. Now, there really is an answer on this one. Hershey's or Reese's Peanut Butter Cups? Oh, some of you guys are good. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. It's not even a comparison. Oh, man, those are good things. Like you freeze them?
Oh, they're the best.
Oh, so some of y'all know that trick. You freeze those things? It's good. Now, we're going to make it a little harder. Not too much. What's my favorite car? Oh, you two don't say anything. Dalton doesn't know.
Wow.
69 Dodge truck.
Dalton gave the answer. 69 Charger. Big blower sticking out the hood. You know,
Yes.
you know, I pull up next to somebody and their car's shaking. Yeah, that's me. Okay, I know you're going to know this one. If you get this wrong, it's going to be that left shoe. What is my favorite NFL team?
Oh,
Steelers.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a whole lot of choices. There's 32 choices. Not many. Okay, what is my favorite eating establishment? Ooh, somebody said McDonald's. Sorry. I worked there for too long. Wife, what's my favorite eating establishment? Oh no. I know who that was. Wife, do you know? Just favorite. Ito's. If you've never eaten there, it is a hibachi style. They cook it right in front of you. You know, they'll like flick cucumber in like your mouth.
Nice.
Shrimp, everything. It's good stuff. So you guys know a little bit about me. Some of these questions, if you couldn't get the hint, they were pretty divisive. See, I like the Steelers. I was raised there. But I know there's a lot of people, for some reason, don't like Pittsburgh Steelers. It's right. You guys will all get saved at some point. It's okay. Coke, Pepsi. Sorry, I don't drink soda. I think it's gross. But I know there's some people who will like fight. You have to like Coca-Cola. No, I don't. I don't even like soda. You have to like Pepsi. They taste the same. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you the last time I had Coke or Pepsi. So anyway, some of these are really divisive type questions, right? Yeah. Like what's your favorite car? That's like divisive. Some people are like, I like a Camaro. I like Mustang. I like a Pinto.
No.
That's Armando's favorite right there, Pinto. Or is it a Kremlin?
Yeah.
Either one of those dudes, his favorite. So, if you can't tell, I'm kind of like trying to get you guys like divided for a couple seconds. But I want you guys to realize that this whole thing is not about division, it's really about bringing people together.
Yeah. Amen.
So let's go ahead and pray real quick. Lord, I love you. I thank you. I glorify you for this day, for the worship time that we've had this morning. It was awesome. Lord, I pray that you will continue it during this message. Lord, let the words be spoken, be your words, not my words. Lord, I love you. I thank you. And everybody said? Amen. Amen. So, Pastor Mike already said hi. If you're new, hi. If you're not new, hi. Either way, hi. So, I do want to thank you guys all for coming to New Song. You guys can, I'd probably still be asleep. Not really. It's almost noon. I'd be awake. But there's a lot of things that you guys could be doing. You guys could be at home. You guys could be like watching the Yankees play. Are they playing today? I don't know either. I don't follow baseball. No offense. But if you think about it, this summer we've been going through the Beatitudes. Like really, really good messages, right? So I've got one too. I know, what a surprise. So I want you guys to realize that even though there have been different people up here speaking, different individuals have been speaking. But if you're really honest with it, it's just that one voice that's really coming out.
Yeah.
See, the words, they may be put in how I would phrase it instead of how Pastor Mike would phrase it. But ultimately, they're still God's words.
Yeah.
Pastor Mike's messages, although it's coming out in his words, it's not really Pastor Mike who's doing the message. It's really God. So I want you guys to remember that as we're going through. So the Bible had a bunch of books. Do you guys know how many? 66. For those of you who got it right. For those of you who didn't get it right, you got it right. 66. But there was a bunch of writers also. See, God didn't I want to pick the person with the most eloquent writing. Because then, let's be honest. Matthew, nah. Mark, nah. Luke, sorry. John, at least Paul would have done okay, right? You know, Paul was really eloquent on his own. But as we think about it, the words that come out of the writers, they're not coming from themselves. It's coming from the great I am. So, let's get a quick recap. I'm trying to not be weird on this.
Is it loud?
Yeah, it'll lock, I hope.
Yeah.
So, let's go to Matthew chapter 5. We're starting off on verse 1, and Jacob's going to be mad at me because I'm not on the camera at all, but I'm okay with that. You can hear me. Jesus. All right, now he saw the crowds. He went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him. Verse 2, and he began to teach them, saying, we got it up? Good. Oop. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. See, if you guys remember, we've been using the ladder. And see, that one, it's me stepping up to the ladder. See, we all need to realize we all have that ladder that we got to go up. This Beatitudes, it's got to start with that first step. See, that first step is not even going up the ladder. That first step is getting to our ladder. Because if we're not to our ladder, then we're not going to be able to go up it. I've seen people try to go up ladders, but you kind of look a little weird off of it. Never land. So, Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. See, it's a progression. That first one gets me to this point. This one's getting me to my next point. Blessed, ooh, I almost missed that step. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. See, I had to get up. That progression is getting me up higher. Ooh, yeah, I'm making sure I'm not missing that step. Ooh, shaky. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy. Man, this is shaky. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And then my favorite one today, which is what we're going to be going over. Woo! Y'all look so tall. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Now, I want you guys to realize that is a progression. It's all the way to get up here. And guess what? The further I am from the ground, the further away I am from myself. The higher up that I am on these Beatitudes means that my attitude is more like Christ.
Amen.
See, I want you guys to realize that as I'm going through this whole thing, I'm not going to stay up here the whole time. I like Jesus. I want to be closer to him spiritually, not, like if I, fall, I don't want to go to him right now. So I'm coming back down. You guys, just imagine me being up here the whole time. Just imagine. You guys all have good imaginations, right? If not, then, yeah. It looks so much higher up there. But God is good. See, I'm going to go ahead and finish that out. Verse 10 says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, I want you guys to realize there's actually a very distinct separation between blessed are the peacemakers and then going into verse 10, blessed are those who are persecuted.
Yeah.
There's a distinction, which we're going to get into it a little bit, but not too much. I just want, when we're talking the Beatitudes, right here. Verse 11, "Blessed are you when people insult you because of me." I think I skipped one, didn't I? Verse 12, I'm jumping. "Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Now, I'm just focusing on verse 9. That's it, just verse 9. "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God," the sons of God. Now, Pastor Mike, he always loves to translate words, so I got some words for you. If I pronounce them wrong, Jesus loves you, forgive me. So, Pastor Mike gave you the blessed. Do you guys remember what blessed is in Greek? Makarios. And that means happy.
Yeah.
See, look, you guys got that. Now, let's give you a little easier one, right? Let's go for Hebrew. What is Hebrew for peace? There you go. You guys see? You guys, easy. What is peacemaker in Hebrew? It's got shalom in it. It's osai. O-S-E-I. Osai. Osai shalom. Okay, how about Greek? Let's go into Greek, because, Pastor Mike likes Greek. Peace for Greek, Irene. See, I actually learned that the name Irene actually comes from Greek for peace. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh. So it's spelled a little different, but ultimately, base. And then peacemaker, I'm not even going to pronounce that because it's like really awkward and there's like 5 vowels all in a row and it's like O-E-I, A-E-I-O-U, and sometimes Y. So, peacemaker is Osai Shalom. God is our peace, right? Now see, I want you guys to realize that whenever we're talking about peace, it is shalom. If we're talking about a peacemaker, this is an individual. This is a person that is going and they are trying for peace. Now, I also learned that besides Irene, you guys know King Solomon? His name actually stems from shalom. It actually stems from peace. Man, I learned a lot of stuff going for this thing. So let's go to point 1, because I got a lot of stuff. I got a lot. I got like 87 points. Don't believe that, because it's definitely not true. Point 1, we've got our peacekeepers versus our peacemakers. Now, a lot of people are under the assumption that a peacemaker and a peacekeeper are the same thing. I'm going to hold you up right there. It's not.
Yeah.
Peacekeepers, peacemakers, it sounds really close, but whenever you get into what it actually means, then you come up with, oh man, I want to be this one. Which, if you haven't figured it out, blessed are the peacemakers. I want to be a peacemaker, not a peacekeeper. And see, the words are so similar, it actually can trip people up. Now, I'm not going to go into, that's what the devil likes to do, like gives words that are like really similar. But the devil likes to give words that are really similar. That way it kind of like trips people up. Now, a peacemaker, their standard is God. That's really to the point. Everything that a peacemaker does points towards God. They may not be perfect, but their God is. I'm not perfect, but I want to be a peacemaker, but my God is perfect, so as long as I'm trying, I'm getting closer to Him. Peacekeepers, on the other hand, they like to operate under man's law. And, for the longest time, it really seems like, they're the same thing. No. I would rather operate under God's law than the law of man. Because God's law is always going to be eternal. God's law is not going to change with what society thinks. God's law is not going to bend. God's law is not going to break. God's law is God's law. Peacekeepers, they get swayed by culture. They get swayed by humans. Oh man, I feel like if I'm stepping on your toes, this is Pastor Mike. You can talk to him afterwards. A peacemaker is going to operate in what's called wisdom. Not human wisdom, but godly wisdom. Peacekeepers, they operate in themselves. So a peacemaker is going to look for peace. A peacemaker is going to look for peace. The fruit of righteousness is actually going to be sown by peace to those who make peace. You guys got that? The fruit of righteousness is going to be sown in peace by those who make peace. If you look at James chapter 3, verse 18, it says, peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. So I'm not coming out of like left field with this. This is biblical. This is God's word saying, hey, peacemakers are the way to go. Peacekeepers, it's not talked about in this verse. It does not say peacemakers. It does not say peacekeepers will sow No. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 11, I know, I've got verses, like, that's me. I teach, I throw a lot of info out, sorry. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 11 says, let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. Now, I want to emphasize this. This is actually going to look for peace. This is not the peacekeeper that are just like, oh. This is going and searching, going and making peace. Now, my wife is kind of like, don't do that. But I'm going to anyway. So, we've got 2 dogs. One is like a 15-pound miniature schnauzer, Padme. The other is a 24-pound miniature schnauzer, Yoda. Yes, Star Wars themed. So, we walk them. In the mornings, I walk them by myself. And they are 2 completely different dogs. Padme, while she's on the leash, she is like a vicious little, like, chihuahua. You know, she's that little dog that will, like, go after the big dogs and give person, bird, squirrel. That's what Padme does. Yoda, on the other hand, he's on his leash and he's like, yeah. But see, that's the difference between these 2. But as soon as you take those leashes off, it's a weird story. Padme will run and hide behind whoever's walking her. Even though just like 5 seconds later, she... Yoda, on the other hand, he's like, let's go. Leashes off. Where's the big dog of the yard? And see, if you think about it, that's really what the difference between a peacekeeper and a peacemaker is. Now, I'm using it kind of weird because it's my dogs. But when the chance for peace is actually shown, what does the peacekeeper do? The peacekeeper kind of hides. The peacekeeper kind of keeps to themselves. That's what Padme does. Even though 5 seconds before she was all, hey, peace, 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 peace. As soon as she actually had that real chance, with that leash no longer holding her back, she hides. And see, that's what peacekeepers like to do. They like to be really showy. I'm all about peace. But whenever it comes down to it, when they are finally released, then they're going to hide. Yoda, on the other hand, he's a peacemaker. And as long as you're good, he's good. Once he's off that leash, he will like, hey, 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 hey. Now mind you, he's like really high pitched. But I was walking them this morning and there was a Rottweiler. That's a little bit bigger than both my dogs combined. In fact, it could eat Padme with 1 bite. That dog barked 1 time. And what did Padme do? She went and she hid behind me. I'm like, girl, if he comes after me, I'm throwing you first. I don't want to get eaten by a Rottweiler. The guy who was walking the Rottweiler's like, yeah, this dog's just a big teddy bear. I'm like, that's good. But I want you guys to keep in your mind as I'm going through this, the difference between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. Peacemakers will go to make peace. Peacekeepers will do everything they can to back off and hopefully peace will happen. Hopefully peace will happen. Now let's go into John chapter 4. Now I know this one's been used a couple times, but there's some things that I really want to pull out with John chapter 4. I'm starting in verse 1. It said, now Jesus learned that the Pharisees heard he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John. Although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So he left Judea and he went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon when a Samaritan woman came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" Now, some stuff that I want to point out. Thing number one, Jesus left somewhere. In this particular case, he left Judea. He left that area of comfort. He left that area where he was so he could go do God's work. He went to somewhere. He went to Judea, or actually he went to Galilee. After Galilee, he went to Sychar. See, that's a bunch of Jesus going to places. And see, that's what peacemakers do. They go to places so they can bring about peace. A peacekeeper, on the other hand, they're going to stay stationary. They want peace to happen, but they're not going to go out of their way to make it happen. They're not going to sit there and listen to people fight and argue. I'm about to get ahead of myself. So Jesus had to go to where the Samaritan was. Remember, he wasn't even supposed to be talking to her. But see, that's the thing. A peacemaker will do what they're not supposed to do according to the world. Peacemakers will do what God wants them to do, which is a lot better than what the earthly law tells you to do. See, earlier I said that peacekeepers keep God's law, or keep man's law, not God's law. See, the disciples were following Jesus. They were going to where Jesus was going. Did they have their problem? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Peter was messed up. Thomas was messed up. But they still went to where God was wanting them to go. So I had to do this particular one for my wife. See, Jesus had to go to a proper location to pray. He didn't stay where he was. He had to go to somewhere. He also had to go to hell. Once he was crucified, he had to go to hell. Why? He had to take some stuff. He had to take the keys to death, hell, and the grave. He had to go to somewhere. In Ephesians chapter 6, this is verses 14 and 15. It says, "Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace." See, if you've got your shoes of peace on, that means that you cannot be stationary. If I am at home, what do? I take my shoes off. Mainly because my wife sits there and yells at me, "Take your shoes off." But see, that's when I'm in a place of comfort. When I'm in a place following man's law. In that case, my wife's. But I have to take my shoes off when I go inside. That means that I have no plans on going anywhere. That means that I'm not going to get out. That means that where I am right then, right there, I might go to the back of the house, I might go downstairs, but I'm not going anywhere. I am getting comfortable. And see, peacemakers, it's not all about comfort. We, as Christians, need to go as peacemakers, not peacekeepers. Makers are going to go in God's power, not in the power of man's law. I want to remind you, man's law is temporary. It's only going to last a little bit until something changes. A person who is a peacekeeper, they love peace. And that's really awesome. They love peace. But the problem being a peacekeeper is they're going to push the issue, and it's going to create a larger issue for peacemakers later on. See, they like to avoid the confrontation. I'll admit, I like to avoid confrontation sometimes. I know that I look like I will like walk up and punch a taxi driver in the face. I won't. There's never been a need for it. If you're a taxi driver, Jesus loves you. Keep your grind up. Peacemakers, they're going to handle that situation as soon as they can. Peacekeepers are going to push, and hopefully it'll take care of itself. Peacemakers are going to step up and be like, hey, let's do something about this. So let's go to point 2. Sometimes we have to bear the brunt of someone else's anger so that peace may rule. Sometimes we have to bear the brunt of someone else's anger so that peace may rule. My wife is going to beat me after this story. So y'all like keep me safe, like pray for me after, because my wife. Make peace, wife. Like a peacemaker. So a few years ago, during Christmas, my wife should already know where we're going. And she's already given the look. There was an adult man. He was, pretty big guy. And he was threatening my wife. And I don't just mean like, hey, you! I mean like, he was balling up his fist at my wife. I know, right? Dude was like 5'10", 5'11", and he was a bigger boy. Balling up his fist at my wife. And I'm like, nah. And see, I wanted to be a peacekeeper at that point. And so I'm like, hopefully it'll just like blow over. Just let it blow over. And then like, they actually like started getting like closer and closer, and like he like reared back his fist, and I'm like, it's time to transition. It ain't no time for me to be like nicey. So I got in between them. Remember, I'm not a fighter. So I get in between them, and oh man, it like the tension was like woo, and they're like going at it, and I'm like, listen, go inside. And like, she's redheaded. She's a real redhead. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, that means she liked to fight. And she's like pushing on this guy. And yeah, imagine my wife like pushing on some dude who's like big. I know, right? And so she like pushing on him, and he's like balling up, like ready to strike. I'm like, my guy, stop. So I finally got her to go inside to get herself out of the situation. And me, I was trying to be the peacemaker. I'd stepped in between, I'm like, yeah. And like, all of his anger, all of his animosity transitioned straight from my wife, and all of it came straight at me. For some odd reason, all that anger and animosity, I became the brunt of what he was mad at. He's like, I'm gonna throw you and beat you up right in front of my kid. I'm like, my guy. Like, I was like so, like not even trying to be aggressive at all. I put my hands behind my back. And I stood there. I'm like, dude, I'm not doing anything aggressive to you. And he kept going. He's like, I'm gonna beat you up so bad you won't be able to walk. I'm like, okay. I'm like, your wife and your kid are literally right there watching everything you're doing. They're watching you ball up your fist for no reason. And I'm sitting there literally with both hands behind my back. I'm like, my guy, it's not even worth it. It's like the example right now that you're setting for your kid is horrible. See, as a peacemaker, I was saying some of the things that he probably didn't want to hear, but I was addressing those situations. See, I was bearing the brunt of his anger and his animosity. Why? Because for some reason he wasn't able to handle it on his own. And see, that's what peacemakers have to do. We have to put ourselves in situations that sometimes get a little sticky. That sometimes, that sometimes they even threaten to kill you at the end of the argument. And see, that's not what a peacekeeper would do. Peacekeeper would be like, oh. Peacemaker's like, my guy, that's a horrible example you set for your kid. That's a horrible example. I was just trying to be a peacemaker. So, conflict is going to happen, especially if you're a peacemaker. So, me being the person I am, what is the definition of conflict? Well, according to Merriam-Webster, it is to be different, opposed, or contradictory. So that means that we had two different ideas. Peacemaker, peacekeeper are going to have two different ideas on how to handle things. Conflict's everywhere. We hear about it in the news all the time. So I got some of the obvious ones here. Your neighbors. Man, about a year and a half ago, our neighbors got really, really bright spotlights, and it shone straight into our house. We had those dark out curtains, and I could still read a book at midnight with all of our lights off. Our neighbors were awesome. How about borough versus borough?
Yeah.
We all know the Bronx is the best, right? Yeah. Now, I'm not going to knock Staten Island, but does that even really count? Speaking of Jersey, how about state and state? You know, if you're from New Jersey, I'm sorry, but New Jersey has been called New York's armpit. I'm just going to throw that out. If you from Jersey or you got family in Jersey, pray for them. Maybe they'll move to a better state. Country against country. Let's be honest, I really don't have to address that one. It is everywhere. Ooh, let's get a little salty with this one. Roe versus Wade. Supporters, opposers. Now, if you guys want to know where we stand, I'm going to refer back to something I said earlier. Pastor Mike's right here. You can ask him where we stand. But see, conflict is everywhere. A peacekeeper loves the idea of peace. Peacemakers actually go make it happen. In Romans chapter 12, verse 18, the Bible says, if, I'm going to emphasize that again, if it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Let me throw that two-letter word out again, if. See, God was smart enough even way back then. He was smart enough even before the Bible was actually written. If. He knew. He knew that every one of you guys are going to have some conflict at some point, some time. Whether it's, somebody just stole my parking spot. Or, man, I was about to get that scooter. I've actually wanted to ride those scooters. Those look fun. But if. See, God actually knew that there was going to be no correct way that a Christian is going to live peaceably with people who are non-Christians. See, genuine peacemakers, we're going to have strife. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 11. This is verses 18 and 19. It says, in the first place, I hear that when you come together as a church, there are divisions among you, and to some extent, I believe it. No doubt, there have to be differences among you to show which of you have God's approval. So, I want you guys to realize, God even knew it was going to happen in the church. And see, it is okay for us to disagree.
That's right.
It is okay. If you guys don't agree with everything that I'm saying, it's okay. If you guys don't agree with everything Pastor Mike says, it's okay. It doesn't mean leave. Doesn't mean run away from it. It means be a peacemaker and address it. That means that you come together as people, as Christians, and be like, look, this is what I think is wrong, and this is what I think needs to be done.
Right.
And see, Pastor Mike, myself, whoever you go and address, they're going to be like, okay, let's pray about it. This is why I do this. It might be wrong. Let's try to come up with a solution together. And see, that's what peacemakers do, even here in the church. See, there will be conflict in the church. There will be conflict outside of the church. It's how are we going to deal with it? Are we going to like just push it under the rug, hide it? Are we going to be like Padme, hiding behind people so that we don't have to address it? God knows, even in our church, He knew 2,000 plus years ago, there's going to be strife in the church. He knows that denomination, other denomination, there's going to be strife. But see, I want you guys to realize that with that strife in the church, that is a large potential for growth.
Yeah.
See, when we come together, when we work together through peacemakers, then our growth is going to be dramatically increased. See, if we let that strife happen and then we run away from it, if we try to be a peacemaker, I don't want to like cause any ripples, then what's going to happen is we're making the problem worse.
Right.
A peacemaker should have the ability to be patient. A peacemaker should have the ability to listen to both sides. If there's two groups of people arguing, then as a peacemaker, guess what? At some point, those sides are going to turn and attack you. Why does that happen? Well, they're looking for the easiest out. And guess what? Peacemaker, easy out! Call on me! Man, there's so many stories that peacemakers actually get ripped into. And it's going to happen. Peacemakers sometimes will have to sit there and listen to two people arguing for hours upon end. Some of them, you're talking days on end. Man, I'd stay on that for like days, but we gotta keep going. Let's go to point 3. True children will resemble the Father. See, if you think about that last part, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
Amen.
See, this is the part that's like really like gets me. If I'm going to be a child of God, that means I'm going to resemble God. That does not mean that His face looks just like mine. That would mean I would have a godly face. No, I would be scared if God looked like me. But see, peace that we're talking about means unity. It means that they're coming together. War is going to separate. We're all with that, right? We all understand that. That strife is causing separation. But when we're talking about being a son of God, a child of God, that means that we understand that we are peacemakers and we try to work through it. Not through my wisdom, because my wisdom will fail, but through God's wisdom. So let's go to Galatians chapter 4, verse 6. Now that we're His children, God has sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts. And the Spirit tells us that God is our Father. See, I want you guys to understand. Once you're that peacemaker, God's got to be in there.
Yeah.
God's got to be in there. God's got to be in there. I'm going to say it again. God's got to be in there. See, you can go through your daily life without God? I'm being honest, you can. Every single person in here can go through their day without God. I'm not saying your day's going to be good. I'm also not saying your day's going to be bad. Because one word that I used earlier was eternal. See, if God's in my heart, just like Galatians 4:6 is telling us, then that means that I've got that eternal peace. I've got that knowledge that even though struggle happens around me, even being a peacemaker, it may not all work out the way that I think it should. But I know that God's got my back. Now, I'm going to address this. Some people around Jesus were trying to bring in social injustices. See, some of you guys right now, you're thinking about lots of different social injustices. So, think about those. Because I got something for you. See, some of the people witnessed Pilate. This is the leader of the people at that time, mixing the blood of Galileans, with the sacrifice. They were like, Jesus, how you going to respond with this? So let me translate. This is Luke chapter 13. This one's coming out of the Message. So it said, about that time, some people came up and told him about the Galileans Pilate had killed while they were at worship. These people were in church. Pilate's like, hey, down with that one, down with that one. So while they were worshiping, Pilate mixing their blood with the blood of their sacrifices on the altar. Jesus responded, do you think those murdered Galileans were worse sinners than all other Galileans? Not at all. Unless you turn to God, you too will die. And those 18 in Jerusalem the other day, the ones crushed and killed when the Tower of Siloam collapsed and fell on them, do you think they were worse citizens than all the other Jerusalemites? Not at all. Unless you turn to God, you too will die. See, some people are like, well, Jesus isn't really addressing social injustice. Well, if you think about it, he actually did. See, he was taking it from that social injustice and he was putting it on the individual. See, God was being that peacemaker. He's like, you know what? You've got to fix your heart first. You need Jesus far more than that situation needs Jesus. See, Jesus was absolutely addressing that social injustice. The social injustices that you all had in your head earlier, some of you might still have it in your head. Guess what? God's already got a message for you. He wants you to fix you before you worry about that. See, Christ is bringing a purity to that peace. A godly cleansing to that peace. And that godly cleansing, that godly purity needs to be in our hearts too. So he took that demand for that social outrage because the people were like, hey, Pilate did this. And he's like, how's your heart? Now, I want you guys to know that social injustices, they are really important. They really are. They absolutely are. I'm not minimizing any social injustice that some of you guys are thinking of. I'm not. What I want you guys to know first and foremost, this has to be right first. If this is not right, then it doesn't matter what I do on the outside because it's not going to be biblically right. Amen. That godly wisdom that I was talking about earlier, I have to have that godly wisdom before I can take care of anything like that. See, Jesus turned the hearts of the people upside down. He completely flipped everything that they thought was going to happen. They were wanting Jesus, the fighter king. And Jesus was like, no, no. Jesus came as a peacemaker. Now, this story, if it gets like a little, just know that this isn't coming from me. See, I like to read. See, I was reading a book, it's called The Hole in Our Gospel. The guy who wrote this was actually the, president of World Vision. Do you guys know World Vision? Okay, so if you don't know World Vision, they do stuff all around the world. They do God's work around the world. So anyway, the guy who wrote it, if I remember correctly, his name is Richard Stearns. He was in Africa, Uganda, if you want to get like 100% technical. And while they're at what is called a war children's camp. So ultimately what happened is, like, in Uganda, the military commanders would take kids. And when I say kids, I mean like some of them are like 6, 10, giving them military assault rifles and turning them into soldiers. More or less, point, pull. So anyway, this military commander, he's going around, he's trying to get supplies for his children. They come into an area, bunch of women there, because the men were off. I don't know. They were doing something. And the military commander looks at his children soldiers, and he's like, kill them. So these children soldiers started killing the women. Well, gets to one, and this lady's name was Margaret. Don't ask me, I don't know. Her name was Margaret. They take Margaret up to this military commander, and they're like, what do you want us to do with her? And see, they thought that it was bad luck to kill a pregnant woman. And Margaret was 6 months pregnant, so she was showing. And the military commander's like, well, we can't kill her. So instead they did something horrible. They cut off her nose. They cut off her lips. And apparently that wasn't enough, so they cut off both of her ears too. I'm not going too much deeper because I see some of you guys look there. They completely mutilated her. 6 months pregnant. They left her. They were hoping that damage that they had done to her was going to be enough that they didn't kill her, but because of her injuries, she would die on her own. That way they wouldn't get that bad luck for killing a pregnant woman. And see, World Vision actually helped this woman. They actually found her. She stayed alive. She actually had a kid a few months later. Kid was perfectly healthy, even though his mom was left for dead. So while they're in this World Vision children's war camp, they were ministering to this lady, this Margaret. They're helping her physically, because let's be honest, they were helping her emotionally, but even more importantly, they were helping her spiritually. So she's on that road to healing, to life. And after a few months, her son was born. A few months after that, that military commander comes into the camp. He goes into the camp on his own. She's like, how about no? She sees him coming in. She recognizes him. Let's be honest. If something like that happened, you would recognize whoever did that. She saw him coming in and she's like, I can't be here with him. all that anger, everything that she had, she thought she was completely through it, but as soon as she saw him, it all came back. That idea that she had of being a peacekeeper was going through her head. She was pushing it under the rug, pushing it under the rug, pushing it under the rug. But as soon as she saw him, then she was like, if he stays, he dies. I will kill him myself. That's what she told the people at World Vision. And they're like, oh, we can't have that. You're doing a good job. We can't have that. So they moved him to a different war children's camp. They worked with him. He denied. Absolutely. He's like, I didn't do that. I wasn't even there. But they kept working with him. God kept working with him. They kept being peacemakers in this guy's life. They kept being peacemaker in Margaret's life. At some point, through many, many times of counseling, prayer, they finally got to where Margaret would actually talk to this commander. Initially, the commander's like, I didn't do that. I wasn't even there. I wasn't there. But the person who's in charge kept pushing for peace. They were a peacemaker. They kept driving, kept pushing. He started to buckle under that, under God's pressure. He got to a point after a couple months that he's like, okay, I was there. I didn't ask anyone to do it, I didn't order it, but I was there. So the peacemakers kept pushing, kept praying, kept pushing. Eventually, he got to a point that he's like, Margaret, I did it. He sat with Margaret. He confessed everything that he did to Margaret. I have a feeling that at some point, God had to have him confess to God first. And it happened. This military commander who was having kids go about kill people admitted what he did. Now, that's not something that a peacekeeper would go for. Peacekeeper would not try to push a mutilated person and their mutilator together. That's not something a peacekeeper would do. They wouldn't want that to happen. They would try to keep them far apart. Peacemaker would strive for peace. I have a feeling that the World Vision people kept getting yelled at by this commander. I didn't do it. It's your fault that I'm here. Well, technically you came in on your own. But see, peace that God is going to bless is never going to come by evading the issues. Peace is only going to come, the blessing is only going to come when Christians actually confront it. See, Christians, we need to confront it. We need to overcome it. We need to conquer it. Peacemakers, we try to reconcile. Peacemakers recognize the reconciliation is not through tolerance. It's not through pretending there are no differences. It's not suppressing differences. It's accepting those differences. It's creating love for another person that transcends those differences. And once that happens, it leads to reconciliation despite the differences. So the last verse I've got for you, 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. It says, aim for restoration. Comfort one another. Agree with one another. Live in peace. And the God of love and peace will be with you. See, this is all about going up our ladder. See, once we get up to our rung up here, that's what we're talking about. It is not an easy thing. This is difficult. It is difficult to be a godly peacemaker. That's not something that in our hearts we want to be. When that guy was balling up his fist at my wife, that was not what I wanted to be. The normal part of me was like, I'm going to break your neck. That was the earthly me. But man, for some reason, God was like, my guy, I got you. You get this. And so I stood there, hands behind my back. If he would have clapped me in my face, it would have like broke my jaw. Like I literally had no protection at all. That is whenever you're getting that faith to step up all the way to peacemaker. That's difficult. You guys, please rise with me. Now I want you guys to know that Jesus, he didn't back down. Jesus got up in the Pharisees' face. He told them the truth. Some of those Pharisees didn't like it, obviously. Jesus went to the cross. But Jesus never went at people to hurt them. He didn't. He went to them to minister to them, which is a huge difference. Jesus was meeting people at their needs. The Samaritan woman, she needed Jesus. So he had to go there. Talking about the Beatitudes, it's been a journey. We started off on that very bottom rung, and now we're up here. We're at this top rung. But it's a journey. There's going to be times that, I'll be honest, that like when I feel like I'm a peacemaker, there's times that I'm like, and then I want to be a peacekeeper, and I back down a little. I prefer to be a peacekeeper, so I back down a little bit. And it's a journey that's got to keep me going up. It's a struggle. It's not something that's going to be easy, but through God, we can do all this stuff, right? So you guys, let's go ahead and bow our heads. Let's close our eyes. Do two quick things here, just very quick. First of all, and I think this should happen for every message, there's any of you that do not actually know Jesus. You don't know him, but you want to. I want you to just very quickly, like, poke your eyes up, make eye contact with me. Second one, if you think that you need to be a better peacemaker, that you need to quit being a peacekeeper and step into that journey of being a peacemaker, all I want you to do is just look up, make eye contact with me real quick, and you can put your head back down if you want. And I'm telling you, to be honest, that journey is one that I like to struggle with. Because I do it all the time. Okay. Lord, I love you. I thank you. I praise you for all the things that you've done. Lord, right now I'm going to bring that first one to you. Lord, if there are people in here who do not know you, but they want to accept you right now, Lord, I pray that you will touch their hearts. I pray that you will touch their minds, and Lord, I pray that you will forgive them. I pray that you will accept them into your family, accept them into your love. Lord, for that second one, Lord, it encompasses a lot of people. But Lord, I pray that you will give us that strength to quit being a peacekeeper and transition into being a peacemaker. Lord, let us walk on that journey with you, closer with you, hand in hand with you, to being that peacemaker. That whatever's going on around us, we know that through your wisdom, through your power, through your might, you can handle it properly. That you can bring about that peace between people. And Lord, give us the words, give us the strength, give us the courage that even though we might be the brunt of somebody's anger, we can still show your peace. And Lord, I thank you. I thank you for this day. It's in your name I pray. Everybody said?